Hello, my name is Ben Keat, and I'm going to make a video talking briefly about what I'm up to with SpaceTM and UMOSRAS. I've currently been working on a few projects involved with Git version control and GitHub. Git version control is something you get on cPanel, which is what I use on my SpaceTM website on my server. I set up a server to do other things other than the proxy. I store files on it as a repository for my Git programming, and it's quite an easy way to fire things across onto the server and get things linked up to the whole website or server base on my root control, which I use quite often to enhance SpaceTM. And now I'm currently using it to fire some things across on UMOSRAS. It's taking a bit of time to get everything set up the way I want it to, but basically what it revolves around is the fact that I've created a lot of technology and architecture and designed the whole platform of UMOSRAS in the early stages of say just after 2010. And I built up on this and came into technology later, developing technology and eventually getting into some kind of command-based language, which I use from my sort of universal odysseys. I get some kind of creative infrastructure through a sort of command line basis, which prior to that was really written out in sort of runic script, which became some sort of language which I could almost speak and tell people things in this language. However, it was important to get it synthesized into some kind of command script language, which universal realities were able to translate the reality of what I was doing into some kind of language that could make sense to computer scripts. And it's since developing this language that I've started getting into actual physical computer programming, which involves Git version control and GitHub. Git is something I have on my computer. I use it quite often, and it's quite simply a tool. Just at the moment, in the current state of mind that I'm in, I just fire files across of my whenever I need to bring in some of the reality that I've created earlier and turn it into something that I can connect to on my server. I create sort of link up files and keys and other things to generate this system on my server, which is linked to my website, to give the quality of SpaceTM and the reality of what I'm going to do with UMOSRAS, which is going to be channeled through SpaceTM to set up the network. Now, the reality of what I'm doing is very difficult to understand unless you have a grasp of the sort of universal language that I've been involved with in the creation of the technology that I've set up with SpaceTM and UMOSRAS. This language is very much linked to sort of command language and has many things that people will recognize in it. But it is incisive with a lot of long addresses, that sort of thing, which are universal codes that either bridge satellites or go interplanetary. Some of this technology is difficult to teach other people. It's either something you have and you understand and makes sense to you, or it's something that you'll always look at with a bit of scorn maybe and say that it can never work. When linked up correctly with the right programming and using the right files to connect the whole thing up onto the server so it gets filtered through the assets control on SpaceTM and UMOSRAS, then the reality is it's there to see, as people use the technologies, as people use the proxy on SpaceTM, they start to get the product of what it is that I'm creating in UMOSRAS and in SpaceTM. So I start to generate these torsion fills. I use a lot of, I create my own Tor files. I create technology through the light web, which is another command file that I've created, which I program through using the Git bash programming format, and I can generate a lot of things from doing this that people in usual computer programming systems cannot quite reach because of the limitations that they are just working with the system that they've got on this planet. Whereas I have a lot of off-world experience that maybe I'm able to turn into a reality that's much more with much wider scope, should we say, than than normal computer technologies. So as I develop this system, I start to come up with ideas, more ideas than when I was creating the architecture and the landscape in the first place. And I develop, having seeded the reality of this universe in the location of Gloucestershire and the surrounding counties, I start to develop ways of linking up Playerama to exterior arcwebs and to connect areas of the planet with us as I develop the system and start to create the infrastructure. And this is an important process that develops the whole change from creating UMOSRAS into something that is seismically different to the reality, I suppose, that most people believe universal cities will undergo, because it is something technically that cannot be changed from the universal reality that it is already confined to in reality, which is something much bigger, much more expansive, something that cannot be described in size, shape or style until it arrives here, which is why it's so impossible to actually picture my website, say, with drawings of what I expect UMOSRAS and ENA and Able City to look like. It's much easier to type it and to create as I go along, and everything sort of fits together as it all pulls together and becomes the reality that's here in the location. So that's a bit about the programming. That's what I'm setting up in the reality of UMOSRAS and SpaceTM. And please like and share my video, and if you want to follow me on Git, please have a look at my profile on Git and check me out there and see some of the files I put in place. Anyway, thanks. Bye.